Hey there, family, and welcome to the first minisode of this week. Today, we're going to share some personal stories of how the inner voice has affected us in real life.
So if you want to hear some real life stories from your real life sisters, stay tuned for this minisode coming at you right now.
Do you want what you want sooner rather than later? Do you find yourself growing more effectively in environments where people are growing alongside you? Well, we have the conference for you.
Do you love going to events as much as we do? Then you want to be in the room for the Further Faster conference happening October 29th and October 30th in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now, the Further Faster conference is headlined by our dear friend, mentor, and business partner, Joseph McClendon III. And trust us, you're going to want to be in the room.
This is 2 days jam-packed of material that will help you grow personally and professionally. And if you're wondering how to make $1 million in 10 years, you have to be in the room to hear the strategy that Joseph is going to share. It is phenomenal.
Go to neuroencoding.com/FFC to learn more about the Further Faster conference coming at the end of October.
We hope to see you in Vegas. And now back to the show.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Fenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Fenix Productions.
All right, so let's jump right into it. We've got a couple of examples here of times where our inner voice hasn't served us so well. Hopefully to help illuminate for you, maybe some times where your inner voice has stolen your joy.
Right. This week, we're really unpacking and dissecting this whole idea of that inner narration, the inner voice that all of us, or at least most of us, experience on a pretty much continuous basis. And if you've noticed that that voice isn't always constructive, then you're not alone. We've noticed that too. And we want to share a couple of stories with you right now about how we've noticed this and then tried to address it.
Now, when I was on honeymoon, we had a beautiful opportunity to head to Cancun. Danny and I were down there for a week and had planned some dinners ahead of time. Now, of course, like any bride, I definitely got body ready for the wedding, probably dropped about 15 pounds right before the wedding and was in some of that peak, I don't want to say physical condition because I've been at a better physical condition, but I was very skinny for the wedding, probably that lowest weight that I have seen in my adult life. And at this time, we go to this beautiful honeymoon in Cancun. We have dinners that are RSVP'd and planned. And one night, I get up to go to one of these dinners. I am fully dressed. I'm fully ready. I had spent an hour getting ready, my hair and my makeup. And just as we're about to leave, I look in the mirror and the inner voice says to me, "You're fat. You're ugly. You can't go out like this. You think that you are beautiful. You think that you are bride material. You think that you are worthy of a fancy dinner in a fancy place at a fancy opportunity." The voice was really awful to me, like the meanest it has ever been. So much so that it was showing me those pictures, right? I was seeing pictures in my mind of me being like a Jabba the Hutt in this tiny little dress that I was wearing. It was giving me sensory awareness of feeling sick to my stomach for just looking at myself in the mirror. It was serving me all 4 of the ways that it can possibly think the most horrible images about me. And in that moment, I let it shrink me. I allowed the voice to walk me back from actually going to dinner. We stayed in that night and I cried myself to sleep on my honeymoon. The inner voice that day stole about 12 hours of my available joy, but I let it because I didn't have consciousness that that voice wasn't me, that voice was an iteration of my patterns that had been firing for my whole life and that I didn't have to listen to it and stay in bed.
Right? Don't you wish you would have been equipped with that awareness of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like that is just...
Is that true?
Is that really true? And is this constructive for me? It is absolutely not. But boy, I think all all of us can probably relate to having some kind of situation like that. Now, Kay, your wedding was almost 10 years ago. Okay, you guys are coming up on your 7-year anniversary, which is so cool. But I have an example that's even from this year. I've gone through a fairly rocky emotional readjustment around some of my close high school friendships. And it came as a bit of a surprise to me. And this happened earlier in 2022. So, if you're listening to this now, I'm about 5 months post kind of the friendship breakup, if you will. Now, this came out of nowhere for me. And this was kind of a big emotional situation that I had to process and deal with. It hurt my feelings a lot. I had a lot of questions, a lot of kind of unresolved emotions around it. So, when you go through something like that, your voice has a lot to say. Mm-hmm. It wants to digest. It wants to dissect. It wants to question. It wants
to steal all that joy.
It wants to blame. It wants to poke at you. And the truth is, there's not much you can do to stop the voice. But once you become aware of that, every time I'm now feeling, and it's probably still right now a daily basis, that pull of the narration of the voice wanting to dissect and digest and talk about this situation, even though I've decided consciously what my reaction is to it, I'm now able to shift into a different gear, which if you tune into tomorrow's minisode, you're going to hear us talk about the strategy that I'm employing for this as it's happening to me in real time, because that auto rumination, that ruminating that your voice does, it's going to happen because you've experienced this big emotional whatever, and it's going to process. Now, whether or not you allow your consciousness and your awareness to go with it, that's your choice. And that's the empowerment piece that has been so impactful for us and that we're going to address in tomorrow's minisode. So make sure you tune in so that you can hear all of the strategies for how to shift out of that gear when it happens to you.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.